When my son-in-law raised his glass at my daughter's wedding, I thought he was about to bless her. Instead, he called me a bottom feeder, and that insult became the moment his perfect world unraveled. The morning sun spilled through the thin curtains of Martha Collins' kitchen, painting streaks of gold across the chipped wooden table. It was the same table where she'd packed school lunches, sorted bills, and whispered prayers that her daughter's life would be easier than hers. Today that prayer seemed answered, and yet her heart trembled. On the counter, a note rested beneath an unopened envelope. "Mom, please be on time. Love, Emily." Emily, her pride, her purpose, her everything. Martha smiled, tracing the letters with a trembling thumb. Her daughter was marrying Daniel Rhodes, the kind of man mothers dream of for their daughters. Educated, charming, born into privilege. Or so it seemed. Martha had never met his family until last night's rehearsal dinner. They were polite enough, but their eyes held the kind of pity that burned worse than insults. When Daniel's mother mentioned their private vineyard in Napa, Martha nodded along, pretending she knew what a sommelier was. Hey there, my dear family and friends. If you're already tuned in and ready to enjoy this story, hit that subscribe button, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because tomorrow I'll be bringing you another story just as captivating, and you definitely don't want to miss it. Now back to the story. She had ironed her only dress for the big day, a navy blue gown she'd found at a thrift shop 2 months ago. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, modest, and carried something no designer fabric could love. As she pinned her silver hair into a bun, she caught her reflection and whispered, "You did your best, Martha. You got her here." Across town, Daniel Rhodes fastened his cufflinks, his reflection sharper, colder. His groomsmen laughed in the background, sipping champagne, while his mother adjusted the boutonniere on his tux. "Remember, darling," she said, smoothing his collar, "today isn't just a wedding. It's a statement. People notice who we associate with." Daniel's jaw tensed. "Mother, Emily's wonderful." "She is," his mother replied. "But her mother? Well, let's just say she doesn't quite fit the Rhodes aesthetic." He forced a smile. "Don't worry. I'll handle it." At noon, the ceremony began. The venue shimmered like something out of a fairy tale. Chandeliers draped in white roses, a live quartet, and guests whispering in designer gowns. When Martha arrived, heads turned. Her thrifted dress stood out like a daisy in a field of orchids. She smiled nervously, clutching her small purse as if it were armor. "Mrs. Rhodes," someone called. It was Daniel's aunt, her diamond bracelet blinding under the sunlight. "Oh, you look so quaint." "Thank you," Martha said softly, missing the sarcasm entirely. She took a seat near the front, her eyes filling with tears as Emily walked down the aisle, radiant, graceful, the same little girl who once danced in rain puddles. For a brief, blissful moment, Martha felt peace. When Daniel took Emily's hand, even Martha believed in fairy tales again. Hours later, at the reception, laughter and music filled the grand hall. Martha stayed quietly at her table, watching Emily beam under the chandeliers. She barely touched her food, her heart too full to eat. Daniel clinked his glass, commanding the room's attention. "I'd like to make a toast," he said, his grin perfect, his tone light. "To my beautiful wife, and to the families that made us who we are." The crowd applauded. Then he turned toward Martha. "And to my new mother-in-law," he added, voice dripping with charm. "You know they say opposites attract, rich and poor, gold and gravel." Laughter rippled faintly. Martha smiled awkwardly, unsure if it was a joke. Daniel's eyes glinted. "But you, Martha, you're a real fighter, aren't you? Coming from, well, wherever you came from. You climbed up, didn't you? A real bottom feeder that made it to the top." The room froze. The laughter died instantly. Martha blinked, unsure if she'd heard him right. The microphone caught every word, echoing through the hall like thunder. Emily's face drained of color. "Daniel," she started, but he waved her off, laughing. "I'm kidding. Come on, lighten up, everyone." But no one laughed. Martha sat perfectly still, her hands clasped tightly on her lap. Inside, her chest burned, not from anger but from disbelief. She felt the same shame she thought she'd left behind decades ago, the same sting from every whispered insult when she worked double shifts as a janitor. She excused herself quietly, ignoring the whispers, the stares. Outside, the night air hit her face like a slap. By the garden's edge, she leaned against a stone pillar and exhaled shakily. She could still hear the music inside, people pretending everything was fine. Tears blurred her vision. "Bottom feeder," she whispered, her voice trembling. "After everything I did." In the distance, fireworks began to bloom, lighting up the night sky. Loud, dazzling, and empty. Have you ever been humiliated by someone you trusted, and stayed silent to protect someone else's happiness? Would you have walked out like Martha? Or confronted them right then and there? Share your thoughts below. The echo of Daniel's words lingered long after the laughter had died. Inside the reception hall, conversations stumbled, glasses clinked awkwardly, and smiles turned brittle. The band, uncertain, started playing again, hoping music could erase the sound of humiliation. But nothing could. Emily searched for her mother, panic rising in her chest. Martha's seat was empty. "Daniel," she hissed, grabbing his arm. "What the hell was that?" He shrugged, forcing a grin for the nearby guests. "Relax, babe. It was just a joke. Everyone's too sensitive these days." "A joke?" Her voice trembled. "You called my mother a bottom feeder at our wedding." Daniel leaned in close, his voice low but sharp. "Emily, it's your wedding night. Don't make a scene. We'll talk later." Then he kissed her cheek and turned to greet more guests, the picture of charm as if nothing had happened. Outside, Martha sat on a stone bench in the garden, her hands trembling. The laughter, the lights, the luxury. All of it felt suffocating now. She could still hear Daniel's voice, that single phrase echoing like poison. Bottom feeder. She'd worked her entire life to keep Emily from ever hearing those words, from anyone. Now they were part of her daughter's wedding story. A waiter, barely 20, approached timidly. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Martha dabbed her tears with a tissue and forced a small smile. "I'm fine, dear. Just needed some air." He hesitated, then nodded and left her in peace. The night air was heavy with the scent of roses and burnt sparklers. Somewhere a couple laughed, oblivious, untouched by shame. Inside, Emily stood alone at the edge of the dance floor. The weight of the day, of her love, her hope, her family, pressed against her chest like a stone. Her mother had always told her, "People show you who they are in how they treat others, not how they treat you." And tonight, Daniel had shown her something she couldn't unsee. Her best friend, Anna, approached cautiously. "Hey, is your mom okay?" "I don't know," Emily whispered. "I can't find her." Anna frowned. What Daniel said was awful. People are talking. Emily's stomach twisted. "I know." She wanted to run, out the door into her mother's arms, but the expectations around her were like chains. Guests watching, cameras flashing, Daniel's hand brushing her back as if nothing were wrong. And yet, deep down, something inside her cracked. By the time Martha returned, the dinner was ending. She moved quietly, unnoticed, until she reached Emily's side. "Mom," Emily whispered, eyes glassy. "I'm so sorry." "Don't apologize for his choices, sweetheart," Martha said softly. "You have nothing to be sorry for." Daniel turned, catching sight of them. "Ah, there's my favorite mother-in-law," he said, raising his glass again, still riding the wave of arrogance. Martha met his gaze. For the first time, she didn't look away. "I think I'll be heading home," she said evenly. "It's been a long day." Emily grabbed her hand. "Mom, please." "Let her go," Daniel interrupted. "If she's tired, she's tired." That fake smile. That voice dripping with false courtesy. It made Martha's skin crawl. She squeezed Emily's hand gently. "It's all right, honey. We'll talk soon." And then she walked out. Slow, steady, her heels clicking against marble like quiet punctuation marks. Outside, the cold air cut through her thin dress. Martha wrapped her arms around herself, waiting for the cab she'd ordered. Her throat burned, but her pride held firm. She whispered into the darkness, "You can insult me, Daniel Rhodes, but you'll never break me." The cab pulled up. The driver, an older man with kind eyes, opened the door. "Evenin', ma'am. You from the wedding?" "Yes," she said quietly, sliding into the seat. "And I think I just saw the groom's true face." He gave a knowing smile. "Rich folks' parties, huh? They act like money's soul insurance. But it never covers the damage." Martha chuckled softly, the first hint of strength returning. "You're wiser than you know." As the car drove away, the mansion lights shrank into the distance, swallowed by night. Meanwhile, inside, Daniel's charm began to falter. Guests whispered behind napkins, the earlier laughter replaced by murmurs. Emily stayed silent, her smile gone. Daniel poured himself another drink, muttering, "Can't anyone take a joke anymore?" His best man, Liam, leaned in. "Mate, you crossed a line. Everyone saw it." Daniel shot him a glare. "Oh, please. That woman's been milking the single mom sympathy card her whole life. Emily deserved better than that background." Liam hesitated, unease flickering in his eyes. "You sound just like your old man." Daniel froze. For a fraction of a second, the mask slipped, something raw, almost fearful, beneath his polished surface. Then he straightened his tie. "Watch yourself." That night, as the newlyweds drove away in their vintage Rolls-Royce, Emily stared out the window in silence. Daniel talked about honeymoon plans, hotel suites, and champagne breakfasts. She said nothing. Her mind replayed the garden scene. Her mother's trembling hands, the tears she tried to hide, the silence she didn't deserve. Finally she spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you say that?" Daniel blinked. "Say what?" "Bottom feeder." He smirked. "You're still on that." "Emily, it was a joke. Your mom's too sensitive." Emily turned to him fully, eyes hard. "Or maybe you're too cruel." For the first time that night, Daniel didn't have a comeback. Across town, Martha sat at her kitchen table, the same one she'd started the day at. The dress was wrinkled, her makeup streaked, but her spine was straight. She looked at the old photo on her wall, her and Emily years ago, smiling through the window of their first apartment. "People can call me what they want," she murmured, "but I raised love. And love never sinks." The clock ticked softly in the background, steady, grounding. For the first time that night, Martha didn't feel small. He felt awake. Something had broken, yes, but something else was beginning to rise. When someone crosses a line in public, do you believe silence protects dignity, or does speaking out define it? How would you have handled Daniel's cruelty if you were in Martha's place? A week had passed since the wedding, but for Martha, every morning began the same way, with that echo. Bottom feeder. She tried to drown it in the rhythm of routine, folding laundry, watering her plants, answering the phone at her small floral shop. Yet even the scent of jasmine, her favorite, couldn't mask the sting. When customers congratulated her on Emily's fairy tale wedding, she smiled and nodded, hiding the truth behind practiced politeness. But inside a storm brewed, equal parts sorrow and disbelief. She hadn't heard much from Emily since the wedding. Just short texts. "We're settling in, Mom. I'll call soon. Daniel's busy, but everything's fine." Fine. That word again, the shield of every breaking heart. Across the city, Emily sat in a high-rise apartment overlooking the skyline. Glass, chrome, and emptiness. Daniel's designer shoes lined the doorway, his cologne clinging to the air like arrogance. He scrolled through his phone at the breakfast bar while Emily picked at her toast. "You haven't called your mom," he said casually, not looking up. "I was about to," she lied. He smirked. "Good. Let her cool off. She embarrassed herself enough already." Emily froze. "Excuse me." Daniel finally looked up. "Come on, The woman cried at our reception. You saw the looks. It was pitiful." Emily's voice wavered between anger and heartbreak. You humiliated her. She didn't cry because she was pitiful. She cried because you were cruel. He laughed lightly. You're still on that. Babe, it's old news. People love drama. They'll forget. She stared at him, really stared. For the first time, she saw not the charming man she fell for, but the small, fearful boy behind the bravado. His eyes flickered with something defensive, fragile. Do you even feel sorry? She asked. He set his phone down, meeting her gaze. I feel sorry that you're overreacting. That night, Emily called her mother. When Martha answered, her voice was steady but distant. Emily. Hi, Mom, Emily said quietly. How are you? I'm doing okay, sweetheart. How's married life? Emily hesitated. It's fine. There was again that word. The lie both of them understood. I wanted to apologize again for what happened, Emily said. I don't know why he. Martha interrupted gently. You don't have to apologize for another person's choices, honey. But, are you all right? Emily's throat tightened. I don't know. Then listen to your heart, Martha said. It never whispers without reason. A long pause followed. Then Emily whispered. He said I embarrassed him. Martha closed her eyes, pain twisting inside. The ones who hurt others often fear their own reflection. Mom, don't defend him. I'm not, Martha said. But I know shame when I see it. He's fighting something he doesn't want the world to see. Emily frowned. What do you mean? Just be careful. People who build walls of arrogance usually have something fragile behind them. Days passed. Emily began noticing cracks, literal and figurative. Daniel's business meetings ran late. His calls were hushed. Bills arrived in plain white envelopes that he snatched before she could read them. One afternoon, while tidying his study, she found a stack of unopened letters, all marked overdue. Her stomach sank. When Daniel came home, she held one up. What is this? He froze, then forced a laugh. Just temporary. Business is complicated right now. You said your family owned properties, vineyards. He cut her off sharply. Don't question me, Emily. She stepped back, startled by the edge in his tone. Daniel, I'm not your enemy. He rubbed his face, exhaling. I'm sorry. There's a lot you don't understand. My father's legacy left me with burdens. People expect a certain image, and I can't just lie, she asked softly. He looked at her then, truly looked, and for a split second guilt flashed in his eyes. Meanwhile, Martha tried to move forward. She buried herself in her flower shop, finding comfort in the quiet work of arranging beauty. But whispers followed her. From acquaintances who'd attended the wedding, from customers who'd seen the viral clip circulating on social media. Yes, someone had recorded the toast. And yes, it was online. Son-in-law humiliates mother of bride. Crowd stunned. Martha's stomach turned when she saw it. Not out of vanity, but out of heartbreak for Emily. The internet had made her daughter's dream day into a cruel joke. She wanted to call Emily but didn't. Pride held her back, and a strange intuition told her something bigger was brewing. One evening, after closing the shop, Martha found a figure waiting outside. Daniel's mother, Sylvia Rhodes. Martha, Sylvia greeted coolly, her designer coat pristine despite the drizzle. I thought we should talk. Martha folded her arms. About your son's apology, I assume? Sylvia's lips tightened. Daniel can be impulsive, but he's under a lot of pressure. You must understand how embarrassing that night was for our family. For your family? Martha asked, incredulous. Sylvia's eyes hardened. He was nervous. You make him uncomfortable. Perhaps it's cultural differences. Martha's jaw clenched. You mean class differences? Sylvia didn't deny it. Look, Martha, I suggest we let the past go. For Emily's sake. The world forgets things quickly, if we don't feed the fire. Martha took a step closer, voice low. I didn't start the fire, Sylvia. But your son poured the gasoline. Sylvia blinked, clearly not expecting defiance. Careful, dear. Some truths are better left buried. Martha smiled faintly. Truth has a way of digging itself out. That night, alone in her shop, Martha couldn't shake Sylvia's words. Some truths are better left buried. It wasn't just arrogance, it was fear. Fear of something hidden. Martha lit a small candle on her counter and whispered to herself, "Then let the truth rise." The flickering flame reflected in her eyes. Calm but determined. When faced with humiliation, is silence a sign of grace, or a form of surrender? Should Martha keep peace for Emily's sake, or start uncovering what Daniel and his family are hiding? It started with a phone call Martha almost ignored. "Mrs. Collins." A voice chirped. "This is Caroline, Daniel's cousin. We're hosting a dinner for the family next week, kind of a post-wedding get-together. Daniel's parents insisted we invite you. They said it's important for appearances." "Appearances?" Martha repeated quietly. Caroline laughed lightly. "You know how society can be. Anyway, can we count on you?" Martha hesitated. Every instinct told her to decline. But something in her, perhaps that quiet, unrelenting sense of justice, whispered otherwise. "I'll be there," she said. The night of the dinner, the sky wept rain. Martha wore the same navy blue dress she'd worn to the wedding, pressing the wrinkles out with careful hands. Not because she wanted to impress anyone, but because she refused to let shame define her wardrobe. The mansion glowed like a lantern in the mist, its driveway lined with black cars and shimmering umbrellas. When she entered, laughter and piano music greeted her, a scene of wealth carefully curated to look effortless. Crystal glasses clinked. Waiters glided by like ghosts. And there he was, Daniel. He froze mid-conversation when he saw her. His smile faltered, then snapped back in place. "Martha," he said, approaching with that too smooth grin. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I was invited," she replied evenly. "Ah." He sipped his drink. "Good to see you mingling." "Good to see you pretending," she murmured. He blinked. "Sorry." "Nothing," she said, her tone polite, her eyes steady. Dinner was a theater of civility. Long table. Fine china. The Rhodes family performing normalcy while servants poured wine and whispered. Martha sat across from Daniel, beside his mother, Sylvia. The woman's diamonds glittered under the chandelier, but her eyes darted nervously, like someone guarding secrets. "So, Martha," Sylvia began with a tight smile, "how's your little shop?" "Still, modestly thriving." "It's doing just fine," Martha said, unfazed. "Hard work never goes out of style." A small chuckle rippled around the table, mostly from those who didn't know what else to do. Daniel interrupted, his tone cutting. "Mom, let's not bore everyone with shop talk. Martha's probably not used to this kind of dinner." The room went silent for a heartbeat. Martha dabbed her lips with a napkin and smiled. "You'd be surprised, Daniel. I've served dinners like this before, just on the other side of the table." A few guests stifled laughter. Daniel's jaw tightened. Sylvia's fork clinked softly against her plate. "Let's all stay pleasant, shall we?" As the evening dragged on, small inconsistencies began to catch Martha's eye. When the waiter poured wine, he whispered something to Sylvia, who quickly dismissed him with a look. Daniel's father, Robert, excused himself to take a business call, returning pale and shaken. A man in a dark suit slipped in through the back door, exchanging brief words with Daniel before disappearing again. The air felt brittle like glass under pressure. At dessert, Sylvia raised her glass. "To family," she said brightly. "Through storms and sunshine." "To facades," Martha whispered under her breath. Daniel caught it. "What was that?" She looked him straight in the eye. "I said to honesty. The thing that survives after storms." Their gazes locked, a silent battle of pride and pain. Daniel's lips twitched, a faint smirk hiding the flicker of unease behind his eyes. After dinner, guests mingled in the parlor. Martha wandered quietly through the halls, letting the murmur of conversation fade behind her. That's when she heard it. Raised voices down the corridor. She followed the sound until she reached a half-closed door. Inside, Daniel and his father stood inches apart. "I told you to handle it," Robert hissed. "The bank's been calling non-stop. The vineyard, the investments, they're gone, Daniel. All gone." Daniel's voice cracked under strain. "I just need more time. Time won't save you. You lied to her, to everyone. That woman's mother isn't your problem. Our creditors are." Martha froze. "Vineyard. Bank. Ways." Her heart pounded. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "Emily can't know. Not now. If she finds out we're broke, she'll..." "She'll what?" Robert spat. "Leave you. Maybe she should." Martha took a slow, trembling step back, pulse racing. She knew she shouldn't listen, but she couldn't move. Then the floorboard creaked. Both men turned. "Martha!" Daniel's voice sliced through the silence. She stood frozen, caught in the doorway's shadow. I was looking for the restroom," she stammered. Robert muttered something and brushed past her, leaving the room in shame. Daniel's face hardened. "You didn't hear anything." Martha lifted her chin. "I heard enough." He stepped closer, his voice low and venomous. "You think you can embarrass me again? Stay out of my business." "Your business seems to be built on lies," she said quietly. "No wonder you hate mirrors." For the first time, Daniel's mask cracked. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think I do," she said, brushing past him toward the exit. "You called me a bottom feeder, Daniel. But it looks like you've been feeding off fiction." His breath hitched and she saw it, fear. Not of her but of collapse. Outside, rain poured in silver sheets. Martha stood under the grand archway, inhaling the storm like it was oxygen. She knew what she'd heard wasn't just gossip. It was truth begging for light. And yet, a voice inside whispered, "Not yet. Wait. Let the truth come to you." As she walked down the driveway, her phone buzzed. Text from Emily. "Emily. Mom, are you okay? Daniel's acting strange lately. I don't know what's going on." Martha typed slowly, her fingers steady. "Martha. I'm fine, sweetheart. But I think the storm's about to clear. Just hold on." She slipped the phone into her purse and looked back at the mansion. Behind its shining windows, shadows shifted, a family crumbling under its own reflection. Have you ever sensed someone's life wasn't as perfect as they pretended? What gave them away? Their words, their silence, or their fear? The next morning, the rain had washed the world clean, except for Martha's thoughts. She stood behind the counter of her flower shop, trimming roses, her mind replaying every word she'd overheard the night before. The vineyard, the bank, all gone. Her phone buzzed. A message from Emily. "Emily. Mom, can we talk? I'm coming over." Martha set the shears down. "It's time," she whispered. An hour later, Emily arrived, pale and nervous. Her usually bright eyes carried the weight of restless nights. "Mom," she began, sitting at the counter. "Daniel's been different. Distant. He gets angry over nothing. And I found something, letters, overdue bills. He said they were handled. But..." Martha nodded gently. "I know." Emily blinked. "You know." Martha sighed, then told her everything. The overheard argument, the false wealth, the lies buried beneath appearances. Emily's hand covered her mouth. "So all of it, the vineyard, the business, the family fortune. Smoke and mirrors," Martha said softly. "Your husband's entire world is built on them." Tears filled Emily's eyes. "Oh my God. I thought he was just proud. I didn't realize he was pretending to be someone else." Martha took her daughter's hands. "Sweetheart, people who fear losing everything will do anything to look like they have everything," Emily whispered. "And he called you a bottom feeder." Martha smiled sadly. "That's how shame works. It points fingers to hide its own reflection." Later that evening, Martha found herself sitting in her living room, the TV humming softly in the background. Then a news segment caught her attention. Breaking: Rhodes estate faces foreclosure amid financial scandal. The anchor's voice continued. Sources close to the family confirm that the Rhodes vineyard in Napa and multiple business assets are being seized due to unpaid debts exceeding $2 million. Martha's hand stilled midair. There it was, confirmation. She muted the TV and sat in silence, the ticking clock filling the room. A strange calm washed over her. Not glee, not revenge, clarity. The truth had surfaced. Meanwhile, at the Rhodes estate, chaos erupted. Sylvia sat in the drawing room, clutching her pearls, while Robert paced the floor. "This can't go public," Sylvia hissed. Our name's already dirt," Robert snapped. "Years of pretending, all for your parties and his image." Daniel stormed in, throwing his phone onto the couch. "The press won't stop calling. I've had investors pulling out left and right." Sylvia glared. "We warned you, Daniel. That marriage, that woman, it was supposed to stabilize your reputation." Daniel froze. "What do you mean?" Robert sighed. "You think we approved of Emily because we liked her? Her mother's humble story. Single mom, small business. It made you look grounded. Real. We needed that." Daniel's stomach dropped. "So, she was part of the act." Sylvia's voice was cold. "Everyone's a part of the act, darling." He sank into a chair, the weight of his mother's words pressing against the cracks in his ego. For the first time, Daniel saw the trap, the gilded cage he'd mistaken for success. That night, Emily called him. "Daniel," she said, voice shaking. "I know everything." He went still. "What did you hear?" "Enough to know the vineyard's gone, the bank's calling, and your family's drowning in debt." He laughed dryly. "Who told you that?" "Your mother." "My mother is the only honest person left in this story." "Emily," he said quickly. "Listen, I did all this for us. For you. I wanted you to have the best." "No," she interrupted, tears cutting her words. "You did it for your pride. You humiliated the one woman who would have stood by you without a dollar to her name." "Emily." "I can forgive mistakes, Daniel," she said, her voice soft but strong. "But I can't forgive deceit." Then she hung up. Daniel sat alone, staring at the city lights through the window. Bright, distant, and utterly indifferent. A few days later, Martha returned home from the shop to find an envelope taped to her door. No name, just a seal, the Rhodes family crest. Inside was a single sheet. "Stay out of this, Martha. Don't meddle. You don't know what you're stirring." No signature. But the handwriting was Sylvia's. Martha folded the note carefully, then placed it on her kitchen table beside her morning Bible. She whispered, "If truth threatens them this much, it must be worth telling." Then, almost on instinct, she opened her old laptop and began typing. She wrote her story, not as revenge but as testimony. The wedding, the insult, the lies, the pain. Every line raw, unpolished, and real. She titled it, "When My Son-in-Law Called Me a Bottom Feeder, and I Learned Who Really Was." Meanwhile, Emily packed a suitcase. She'd made her decision. When she arrived at her mother's door, Martha didn't say "I told you so." She simply opened her arms. Emily fell into them, sobbing. "You were right about him. About everything." Martha stroked her hair. "You had to see it for yourself, love. Truth always waits until we're ready to face it." Emily pulled back. "What will happen now?" Martha smiled softly. Now we heal. And when we're strong enough, we speak." Across town, Daniel sat in darkness, his phone lighting up with notifications. His eyes widened. The post, Martha's story, had gone viral. Thousands of comments. People sharing, sympathizing, calling him out. He scrolled through the flood of reactions, his breath quickening. What kind of man insults the woman who raised his wife? Poetic justice. The truth always finds its way. "Martha Collins, you're a class act." He hurled the phone onto the floor and buried his face in his hands. For the first time he felt what Martha had felt, humiliation. Only his was earned. When people hide behind lies to protect their pride, do they ever truly fool anyone, or only themselves? Have you ever watched someone's illusion finally collapse? For the first time in weeks, the house smelled like home again. Fresh coffee, cinnamon toast, and the faint perfume of the lilies Martha kept by the window. Emily sat at the kitchen table, her hair messy, her face softer. She looked like a girl again, not the worried woman who'd arrived days ago. Martha poured her coffee. "You slept well." Emily smiled faintly. "I did. It's strange. Even with everything falling apart, I finally feel lighter." Martha nodded. "That's the weight of truth lifting. Lies may feel safe for a while, but they always collect interest." Emily laughed softly. "You always have a saying for everything." "That's what happens when you've survived enough storms," Martha said, sitting down beside her. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that feels full, not empty. Then Emily said quietly, "Mom, you didn't have to post that story. You knew it would explode." "I didn't do it to shame anyone," Martha replied. "I did it because silence protects the wrong people. Sometimes you have to shine a light, not to burn but to guide." Emily nodded, tears threatening. "You're braver than I'll ever be." Martha smiled. "You're wrong. You walked away from a life that looked perfect but felt wrong. That's courage, Emily. That's real bravery." Over the next few days, their routine felt almost normal. Baking, cleaning, even laughing. They watched movies, sorted through old photo albums, and talked about dreams Emily had once forgotten. Opening her own design studio, traveling to Italy, painting again. "You gave up so much to fit into Daniel's world," Martha said gently one afternoon as they painted the old porch rail. Emily shrugged. "I thought that's what love was. Adjusting yourself to someone else's life." Martha dipped her brush. "Love is about growing together, not shrinking to fit." Emily paused, brush midair. "You really believe love still exists? After all this?" Martha looked at her daughter, her pride, her proof that love, even broken, could still bloom again. "Yes," she said softly. "Because I see it right here." Emily smiled, her eyes glassy. "You always find light in the cracks." "That's where it hides," Martha said with a wink. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in the dim living room of the once proud Rhodes estate. Half-packed boxes littered the floor. The silence was heavy, broken only by the hum of a dying fridge. He scrolled through the comments on Martha's post again. Some were angry, some were disappointed. But what struck him most were the few that spoke of forgiveness. Everyone makes mistakes. Maybe he'll learn from this. Shame can be the first step toward change. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then, with trembling fingers, he typed a message. "Daniel. Martha, I don't expect forgiveness. But can we talk? Just once." He hesitated before pressing send. Minutes passed. Then 3 dots appeared. "Martha. Come tomorrow. Morning. At the shop." Daniel exhaled slowly. It wasn't mercy, but it was a door. The next morning he arrived early. The flower shop was quiet, sunlight spilling through the glass. Martha was arranging daisies, her hands calm and steady. He stood at the door unsure. "You really still work here after everything?" She looked up. "Honest work doesn't stop because people lie." He nodded, ashamed. "You were right about me. About all of it." "I wasn't looking to be right," she said. "I was looking for you to be decent." He winced. "I was stupid, arrogant. I thought money made me powerful. But it just made me hollow." Martha sighed, wiping her hands on her apron. "We all wear masks, Daniel. The difference is, some of us take them off before they destroy us." He looked down. "Emily won't even speak to me." "She will when you start speaking the truth, not rehearsed lines." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I want to fix things." "Start by fixing yourself," she said gently. "Then maybe you'll deserve another chance." When he left, Emily was walking up the sidewalk. Their eyes met, the first time since everything had fallen apart. "Emily," he whispered. She froze, torn between love and anger. Don't, she said quietly. Not here. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, he murmured. For the wedding. For the lies. For all of it. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she kept her chin up. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust, Daniel. I know, he said softly. But maybe it plants something. She studied him for a long moment, then walked past him into the shop, where her mother stood watching. Martha said nothing. But in her heart, she felt something shift. A tiny, fragile hope that even shattered people could rebuild if they dared to face their reflection. That evening, the three of them ended up at the same small-town cafe by coincidence, or maybe fate. Daniel sat alone at the counter. Martha and Emily shared a booth. After a while, Daniel walked over, clutching a single white tulip, a symbol of forgiveness. He placed it on the table without a word and walked away. Martha looked at her daughter. That's the first honest thing he's done. Emily nodded slowly, touching the tulip. Maybe people do change, Mom. Maybe, Martha said softly, if they learn to tell the truth about who they are. For a long time they just sat there, letting the hum of conversation and the scent of coffee fill the air. 3 lives, bruised but beating again. When someone finally owns their mistakes, do you believe they deserve a second chance? Or does forgiveness depend on the depth of the wound? For a while, life had a rhythm again. Emily found part-time work at a local design studio. Martha's flower shop thrived, thanks to loyal customers and the viral story that made her an unexpected local hero. And Daniel, he seemed quieter, humbled. He'd started volunteering at a community center. An odd place for a man once obsessed with luxury, but perhaps that was the point. Still, the air between them all felt fragile, like glass stretched thin across too much weight. One wrong move could make it all crack. Came one Tuesday evening. Emily had been working late at the studio when her phone buzzed. Message. From Daniel. Daniel. Please come to the house. I need to show you something. It's important. Against her better judgment, she went. When she arrived, she found Daniel pacing in the empty living room. Most of the furniture was gone now. Sold, repossessed, or left behind like ghosts. He looked nervous. Thank you for coming. What's this about? She asked cautiously. He handed her a document. A glossy proposal with her name on the front. Emily Rhodes Interiors. A new boutique design studio, funded by DR Holdings. Emily frowned. What is this? Daniel smiled too brightly. A fresh start. I got an investor to help launch your business. Our business, actually. Her stomach tightened. Daniel, you can't buy your way back into my life. It's not like that, he insisted. I wanted to prove I can do something right for you, for us. You deserve this chance. Emily's voice trembled. Whose money is this? He hesitated. It's complicated. Daniel. Finally he said it. Sylvia. My mother agreed to back it if I convinced you to. She stepped back as if struck. To what? To come back. To rebuild the family image. She said it would fix everything. Emily's face hardened, tears rising. So this, all of this, was another lie. A setup. Daniel's composure cracked. No. I swear I thought. Enough, she shouted. You haven't learned anything. You're still trying to polish the truth until it shines fake again. He reached for her, but she pulled away. Emily, please. Don't you dare touch me. The words sliced the air like glass. Martha was closing the flower shop when she saw Emily storming up the street, shaking, clutching papers in her fist. Emily! What happened? Emily thrust the proposal at her. He did it again, Mom. Another lie. Another performance. Martha read the papers, her jaw tightening. He used his mother's money. Emily nodded, crying. He said it was an investment, for me, but it was just leverage. He hasn't changed. Martha felt something inside her finally snap, not from anger, but from disappointment too deep for words. He still thinks everything can be fixed with money, she said softly. Even love. The next morning the story broke. A gossip blog ran an article titled, "The Bottom Feeder Strikes Again. Martha Collins' Viral Post Exposed as PR Move." The article claimed Daniel and Martha had staged the original story to gain attention, that the humiliation, the wedding drama, all of it had been orchestrated for sympathy and business. It even included private screenshots of Martha's emails to her editor and photos of Emily at the shop, all twisted to look manipulative. Martha's hands shook as she scrolled. "Oh God!" Emily's face drained of color. "Mom, they're turning it around on you." Martha's phone exploded with calls. Reporters, customers, friends. Half of them wanted answers. The other half wanted distance. And in that moment, the humiliation she'd survived once came roaring back. "Daniel," Emily whispered. It had to be him or his family. Who else would have access to this? Martha didn't answer. She didn't need to. The silence said everything. That evening, Daniel showed up at the shop. Desperate, pale, broken. "Martha, please, I didn't leak it. You have to believe me." "Then who did?" she demanded, her voice sharp, raw. He swallowed hard. "My mother. She found out about the meeting with Emily. She thought if she exposed you, it would silence you." Martha stared at him, tears of disbelief filling her eyes. "You let her?" "No." He took a step forward. "I tried to stop her." Emily appeared from the back room, her voice trembling with fury. "Enough, Daniel. You've had every chance to do the right thing. Every single one. And somehow, you always pick silence." Daniel's voice cracked. "I didn't know she'd go that far." "Because you never want to know," Martha interrupted. "As long as someone else cleans your mess, you get to keep pretending your hands are clean." He froze, his lip trembling. "I'm not that man anymore." Martha shook her head. "You still are, until you stand up to the woman who made you one." For a long moment none of them spoke. Rain began to tap softly against the window, echoing that night at the dinner. Daniel lowered his head. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Martha turned away, her voice trembling. "Sorry won't stop the damage this time." Then she walked into the back room, leaving Emily standing alone with him. Emily's voice was quiet but final. "You wanted to prove you'd changed, Daniel. Here's your chance. Tell the truth, publicly, or don't ever come back." He met her eyes. For once, there was no pride left, only fear. "I will," he whispered. That night, Martha sat on her porch, staring at the rain-soaked street. The weight of everything pressed on her chest, the betrayal, the lies, the pain. She'd survived public shame once. She could do it again. But this time she wasn't doing it alone. Emily joined her, wrapped in a blanket. They didn't speak for a long while. Finally, Emily said softly, "Maybe breaking is what makes us real." Martha nodded. "Sometimes things have to shatter before light can pass through." They sat there, mother and daughter, side by side, their silence no longer heavy, just human. The morning after the scandal broke, the town was humming with whispers. Martha's shop sat quiet, blinds half drawn, her phone still buzzing with unanswered calls. Emily scrolled through social media, her hands trembling. "Mom, they're tearing you apart online. Half of them think you made the whole thing up. The other half just want drama." Martha exhaled slowly. "Let them talk. Truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. It just needs to last." Emily looked at her mother, calm, steady, unbroken, and felt a strange mixture of pride and sorrow. "You don't deserve this." "No one deserves it," Martha said softly. "But maybe it's not punishment. Maybe it's preparation." Emily frowned. "For what?" "For the moment when the person who hurt you finally decides whether they'll be better or bitter." Across town, Daniel stood outside a small TV studio, staring at his reflection in the glass doors. The station had reached out. They wanted his side of the story. He hadn't planned to respond. But Emily's words from the night before echoed in his head. "Tell the truth, or don't ever come back." He stepped inside. The interview began quietly. The host, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, leaned forward. "Daniel Rhodes," she said, "you've been accused of orchestrating a viral sympathy hoax, and now of betraying your own family. What do you want to say?" Daniel swallowed hard. The camera's red light glowed like judgment. "For most of my life," he began, voice shaking, "I thought image mattered more than integrity. My family taught me that appearances are everything, and I believed them." He paused. "But in chasing perfection, I became a liar. I hurt people who didn't deserve it, especially my wife and her mother." The host nodded, watching him closely. "Are you saying the accusations are false?" Daniel looked straight into the camera. "I'm saying Martha Collins told the truth. Every word of it. And the lies, the manipulation, the cruelty, they came from me and my family, not her." The studio went silent. "I called her a bottom feeder at my own wedding," he continued, tears forming. "But she's the most honest person I've ever met. She raised the woman I love with dignity and strength, and I tried to humiliate her because I couldn't face my own failures." He took a shaky breath. "This isn't damage control. It's confession. I don't expect forgiveness. But people need to know who the real bottom feeder was." The host's eyes softened. "That took courage." Daniel gave a small, broken smile. "It took losing everything to find it." When the interview aired that evening, the world watched. At the flower shop, Martha and Emily sat side by side on the couch, the flickering TV painting the room in warm light. Daniel's face filled the screen. His voice was raw, stripped of its usual charm. As he spoke, Emily's eyes welled. "He did it, Mom. He finally told the truth." Martha said nothing at first. She just watched, the same man who'd humiliated her now exposing his own shame to the world. When it ended, silence filled the room. Finally, Martha said, "He chose truth." Emily nodded. "Do you think it changes anything?" Martha smiled faintly. "It changes him. And that's where change always starts." The next morning, the tide began to turn. The same voices that had mocked Martha online now apologized. Messages poured in, people thanking her for standing up, for showing that even pain could bloom into grace. But Martha didn't bask in the attention. She simply reopened her shop like always, arranging new flowers in the window. That's when Daniel appeared at the door. No suit, no polished mask. Just a man carrying a single white lily. "May I come in?" he asked quietly. She nodded. He stepped inside, placing the flower on the counter. "I didn't do the interview for sympathy. I did it because I owed you both the truth." "I know," Martha said. "I ruined your name, and you still gave me the chance to face myself," he said. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say thank you." She looked at him for a long time, then said gently, "Forgiveness isn't something you earn, Daniel. It's something you grow into, one honest act at a time." He smiled sadly. "Then I'll keep trying." Martha nodded. "Do that. Not for us. For you." Later that day, Emily met him at the park where they'd once taken engagement photos. The same oak tree stood there, older, stronger, like time itself had been waiting. "I saw the interview," she said softly. He nodded. "I meant every word." "I know," she said, eyes shining. "It's the first time your words didn't sound rehearsed." He smiled weakly. "That's because I wasn't performing. I'm done pretending." Emily took a deep breath. "I can't promise what the future holds. But I can promise this. I believe you're trying. And I hope you find peace." He looked down, tears in his eyes. "I already did," he said quietly. "Right here." Then, for the first time in months, they hugged. Not as lovers rekindling passion, but as two broken people recognizing the same humanity in each other. That night, Martha lit a candle in her kitchen window, a habit she'd kept from her younger days, symbolizing hope for whatever comes next. Emily joined her, leaning against the counter. "Do you think he'll be okay?" Martha smiled softly. "Maybe for the first time in his life." Then she turned to her daughter. "And what about you?" Emily laughed through her tears. "I think I'm finally okay too. They stood together watching the flame dance. Fragile, bright, alive. When someone finally faces the truth they've been running from, is that enough to deserve forgiveness? Or does healing require walking away for good? A month passed. The air was warmer, softer. The kind of spring that made everything feel possible again. Martha's flower shop overflowed with color. Tulips, daffodils, lavender. The doorbell jingled every few minutes as customers came and went, offering kind smiles, words of support, and small gifts. She accepted them all with grace but never boastfulness. Fame wasn't what she wanted. Peace was. And now she had it. Emily entered mid-morning, hair tied up, her face glowing with quiet purpose. "Mom, guess what?" Martha smiled. "You found the perfect name." Emily laughed. "Yes. I'm calling it Second Bloom Designs. A studio that helps people reimagine broken spaces." Martha's eyes sparkled. "That's beautiful, sweetheart." "It feels right," Emily said. "Like life after ruin." Martha nodded, pride swelling in her chest. Because beauty isn't about perfection. It's about what survives. That afternoon, as Martha was closing up, a familiar voice came from the doorway. "Still saving the world one bouquet at a time." She turned. Daniel stood there. Simpler clothes, tired eyes. But there was a peace about him that hadn't been there before. "I heard about Emily's new studio," he said. "She showed me the plans." "She's doing something special," Martha replied. "She always was," he said quietly. "I just didn't see it when I should have." Martha folded her arms, studying him. "And how's your family?" Daniel exhaled. "My parents left the city. Sold what was left of the estate. My father's working again, imagine that. My mother. She's learning how to live without the illusion of wealth." "That's something," Martha said softly. He nodded. "And I'm rebuilding. Slowly. Honest work this time." Martha tilted her head. "Doing what?" He smiled faintly. "Construction. A friend's company took me on. Turns out, building something real feels better than pretending to own what isn't." He chuckled. "Now that's poetic justice." He smiled, then hesitated. "Martha, I came to say goodbye." Her expression softened. "Goodbye. I got a job offer upstate," he said. "A long-term project. I think it's time to start over. Far from all this." Martha nodded slowly. "Starting over doesn't erase the past, Daniel. But it can honor it." "That's what I'm hoping for," he said. They stood in silence for a moment. Two people who'd once stood on opposite sides of cruelty, now joined by humility and truth. Finally, Martha said, "You were brave to face it all. Most people never do." Daniel's voice was quiet. "You taught me how." That evening, Emily joined her mother on the porch as the sun dipped low. "Daniel came by," Martha said gently. Emily nodded. "He told me. He's leaving tomorrow." They sat for a long moment, listening to crickets and the soft hum of evening. "Are you okay?" Martha asked. Emily took a deep breath. "I think so. I don't hate him anymore." "That's how you know healing's real," Martha said. "When you can remember the pain without reliving it." Emily smiled faintly. "He asked if we'd come to the park tomorrow morning before he leaves. Will we?" Emily looked up at the stars. "Yes, I think we should." The next morning was golden, the air crisp and clean. Dew sparkled on the grass like tiny promises. Daniel waited by the old oak tree, hands in his pockets, a single tulip resting on the bench beside him. When he saw them approach, he smiled, small, genuine, almost shy. "Martha." "Emily." Emily returned the smile. "Leaving without saying goodbye would have been the old you." He chuckled softly. "Yeah. Guess I'm trying to practice being better." They sat together for a while, the silence easy, the pain no longer sharp. Daniel turned to Martha. "I'll never be able to undo what I said that day, at the wedding. But I want you to know I meant what I said on television. You didn't just expose me, Martha. You freed me." Martha's eyes glistened. Truth has a way of doing that. Then Daniel turned to Emily. I'm not asking for a second chance, not yet. I just want you to know I'll spend the rest of my life earning the right to be someone you could forgive. Emily's eyes softened. You already took the first step, Daniel. Just keep walking. He nodded, his voice breaking. Thank you. Then he stood, took a deep breath, and handed the tulip to Martha. For strength, he said. Because that's what you gave me. She smiled, accepting it. And for you, forgiveness, she said gently. Because that's what you gave yourself. He nodded once more, then walked toward the parking lot. The wind caught his jacket, sunlight brushing his shoulders like quiet benediction. Later, as Martha and Emily strolled through the park, Emily slipped her arm through her mother's. You really forgave him, didn't you? Martha smiled softly. Forgiveness isn't for them, darling. It's for us, so we don't carry their darkness any further. Emily nodded, her heart lighter than it had been in months. You always make it sound simple. It's not simple, Martha said. It's sacred. They walked in silence for a while, the tulip in Martha's hand glowing pink against the morning light. That evening, they returned home to a mailbox overflowing with letters. Handwritten ones this time. Notes from women and men across the country. Your story helped me stand up for myself. I finally left a toxic marriage because of your courage. You reminded me that dignity doesn't need wealth. Martha read them quietly, tears slipping down her cheeks. Emily hugged her from behind. You changed people's lives, Mom. Martha smiled through her tears. No, sweetheart. I just told the truth. The truth did the rest. Later that night, Martha placed the tulip in a vase on the windowsill beside the candle she always lit at dusk. She whispered, Thank you, God, for endings that lead to beginnings. Emily joined her, and together they watched the flame dance. It flickered once, twice, then steadied, bright and sure. Outside, the night was calm. The world had stopped spinning quite so fast.
Thank you for staying with us until the very end of this video, and I'm confident you enjoyed it. We've got plenty more exciting and heartwarming stories waiting for you. Just click on the image on your screen to watch the next one.